Buckeye Talk coming to you from Ohio State's 59-38 victory over Purdue. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com along with Stephen Means and Doug Lesmerises. Obviously an explosive day for the Buckeye offense, but they gave up almost 500 yards, had no sacks after having 19 combined in the previous 4 games. So, Doug, coming out of this game, how concerned are you about where this Ohio State defense is after 2 pretty good games from the Ohio State defense?
Concern's not the right word, but I don't think any of those 31 were given up because the defense slacked off because the offense put up big points. I thought that was all legit. And honestly, there was a point in the game where Ohio State's offense had basically played a perfect game, and it felt like, you know what? If they turned it over here and Purdue got a short field, this would be a game. And that was how is that possible when the offense is doing everything right? It's just one of those things. 31. All right, so they gave up 31. Should 31, will Ohio State win most games? Yeah, I think. But if you add Ohio State only scored 26 against Nebraska last week. So if you get a game where you get last week's Ohio State offense and this week's Ohio State defense, I don't think that's a good combination. So that's what I would be curious about. I did not think. Listen, Aiden O'Connell probably is playing as the second best quarterback in the Big Ten. Denzel Burke did a good job on David Bell, but other guys got open. Purdue actually ran the ball okay for a team that can't run it. So concerned isn't the right word, I would say, but I didn't think it was great.
So I think the important context here is Purdue comes out and just completely gacks its first punt. It was a 16-yard punt. Ohio State scores. Purdue completely muffs a kickoff return, gives the ball right to Ohio State in the red zone. Ohio State scores. They had another fumbled exchange that Ohio State recovered and scored off of. I mean, you start taking away those mistakes by Purdue that weren't really Purdue's defense, then it starts taking away points from this Ohio State offense. And I think Doug makes a good point. David Bell had 100 and some yards, low hundreds, but it took him 18 targets to get that. I think Ohio State going into this game would have taken that absolutely. When Purdue gets 500 yards, but that small percentage of it comes from David Bell, to me that's what is a little bit of the concern. I think there were other guys in this Purdue offense gashing Ohio State at other places on the field, and that was, to me, a bigger problem. Steven, I guess just what were your takeaways from, again, real time, we haven't rewatched the film, but what you thought of this Ohio State defense?
I think Doug makes the interesting point of what if you get last week's Ohio State offense and this week's Ohio State's defense, which at least for another week, that is a lot more likely than to get this Ohio State offense but with the defense we've seen the last 2 weeks. I think this offense still needs to do it another week for me to feel like, we're just back or square one, where this Ohio State offense is going to score 45 plus, and so it does not matter what the defense does. But not a great day, but this was the closest thing to a quality opponent where the theory of it doesn't matter what the defense does because the offense is awesome, and it worked out. I mean, they are the number 19 team in the country. They do have 2 top 5 wins this season, so I'll forgive it for now. If it happens again next week, that's when you start to get worried because every single week the competition gets a little better from here on out.
Rende said after the game, I think this was the first time they'd seen a passing game this heavy. I would dispute that. I think they saw it from Tulsa in Week 3. Tulsa got a bunch of yards in that game, put up some points, was challenging Ohio State deep into that game. What Ohio State still hasn't seen, and I would include tonight, because you're right, Purdue got some rushing yardage tonight, but they're not a good rushing team. People who cover Purdue, Jeff Brom would probably tell you they're not a good rushing team. So that they were able to have some success there is a little bit of a concern. And what happens when they do face a team that is not one-dimensional offensively? I think that's actually the bigger concern than adjusting to a team that throws the ball a lot and gets a lot of yards there. It's what happens when they get on a team with athletes in kind of both phases, and what can they do? We are getting pushed off of the field, but find us on Buckeye Talk after the game and subscribe to the text, 614-350-3315, $3.99 after the 2-week free trial for news and analysis, 7 days a week from Buckeye Talk.